Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to Celebrity Natal Charts. Today, we are going to be looking at the natal chart of Jane Moraine Fonda. Um, I don't know. I just felt like the Britney Spears one wasn't as funny and silly as the other natal chart readings have been, but we're looking at Jane Fonda. Oh, Barbarella. Lily Tomlin's best friend from Grace and Frankie. Ooh, celebrity. But it's so the crazy thing is that like I felt as Capricorn is the sign of the mountain goat that doing those Capricorn videos were like an enormous hill that I was never gonna get over, just because like all of the Pisces celebrities I wanted to do I wanted to do like 50 Pisces celebrity videos. Aquarius I probably wanted to do like I was gonna say like Pisces I wanted to do like 500. Aquarius I wanted to do like 100, and Capricorn I was like maybe I want to do like five of these guys. Like there's not like a lot of Capricorn celebrities that I'm like super obsessed or in love with. Sagittarius, like all celebrities are Sagittarius, like literally so many people to choose from. Pablo Escobar and just this guy and that guy, just all the top people of their field. Um, so and then right now, looking at Jane Fonda because she is the Sagittarius rising Capricorn, I was like, oh, here we are back in Capricorn. But like, I don't know what I don't like about Capricorn. I mean, it's just the sign of the planet of limitations. They're great people. I love Capricorn. Some of my favorite people in my waking life that aren't celebrities are Capricorns. But just like it's just the energy, and then like Lin-Manuel Miranda, like like I can't stand him. Like there's days that I'm like, okay, like The Heights, it's a musical, it's nice, it's just like really cheesy. It's just like it's cheesy, but not the flavor of cheese that I like. Like Lin Manuel Miranda, he's like a Havarti, and I much prefer like a sharp cheddar. So maybe I'm not the classy one. I don't know. The Room Where It Happened is like the only song from Hamilton that I like, and then after a while, just like I don't know, I don't feel this way about all musicals, but like his musicals are just very like I'm doing this reading recording over the Lin-Manuel Miranda one, so I'm talking about him. But it's just like I don't know, I don't care, and like it's cheesy, and maybe it's just like for a younger audience that isn't me, and I don't know. But anyway, it was about Jane Fonda. But a lot of the Sagittariuses and Sagittarian celebrities, I think I find to be a lot more exciting because they're from America. Um, and it says Jane Fonda's from New York City, New York. Like what's his name? Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson, he was from like the Peak Skills and grew up in Australia. Um, One guy was from like Akron, Ohio. And then I have Samuel Jackson lined up as well, who doesn't have rising sign information, but he's from Washington D.C. I was like, oh, he hood. I was like, okay, Samuel Jackson will be talking like that. Okay, I was like, New York, like, Jane Fonda could have grown up in a penthouse in Manhattan, New York City. She could have been born there and left immediately for upstate, but there's just something kind of neat being from like New York, New York. It's kind of interesting. But anyway, Jane Linwell Man Miranda Fonda, Linwell Miranda Fonda. She was born New York City, New York, United States, December 21st. Which I think Alan Rickman's birthday is like February 21st. The 21st is like a very powerful day. 1937 at 9:14 a.m. She's a morning baby, and she has the rising Capricorn. Jane Fonda, born Lady Jane Seymour Fonda. Oh, sorry, so her name is actually a lot funnier than the names that I was making up. Lady Jane Seymour Fonda. Why her middle name Seymour? Anyway, is an American actress, writer, political advocate, former fashion model, and fitness guru. She rose to fame in the 1960s with films such as Barbarella and Cat Bilal. I've never seen that one, sounds interesting. And with interruptions, has appeared in films ever since. She has won 2 Academy Awards, an Emmy Award, and 7 Golden Globe Awards, including 3 special awards, among many other accolades. In 2011, she published she published a second memoir, Primetime, and that's her bio. I like Jane Fonda from Barbarella. To my knowledge, Barbarella was kind of like the first movie that you could watch like hella stoned, and it only made sense if you were stoned. Um, Never saw Cat Bob Allow. Love Grace and Frankie. Lily Tomlin could literally be straight edge, but because of how like squinty her eyes are, everything she does is basically Cheech and Chong. And I love her. I love Jane Fonda. I don't even know her. Never met her before. I just love like like the whole story and the because it's kind of like the arc of what Hollywood wants for a woman. It's like, oh, you did these movies, you used to be sexy, now, whore yourself out on these like fitness tapes and have your career die. And then she was like, no, I'm not having my career die. I'm gonna do Grace and Frankie. I'm gonna be relevant. I'm gonna be on sitcoms. I think she was on an episode of Two Broke Girls. I could be making that up. But I love Jane Fonda. I love seeing her. I never want her to die. I never want you to die. You're born in 1937. I know it's coming soon, Jane, but like, please don't. Like, just, talk to Matt Groening, talk to the people at Futurama, figure out how to get your head put in a jar. For the love of God. Maybe they put your head in a jar and then, they take your brain out and they put your brain back in an identical Barbarella body. And then we're watching Barbarella 2 and we're just laughing and we're immortal and life is good. Please don't die, Jane Fonda. I love you. Okay, so she has the rising Capricorn. Capricorn in the first house. That means she ugly. And she's an ugly person to her soul and her core. I'm just kidding. She has a rising Capricorn. So it's actually rising Capricorn, kept the first house. I just talk about the way that you look. And very similarly to Britney Spears, it talks about like the way that you look and your self esteem. Like the way that you look impacting your self esteem or how much you weigh or well, for Britney Spears with her rising Libra, it's more about her weight and her belly and her hips. Capricorn is more about her ass and like her thighs, but I don't know. Barbarella maybe had good thighs, but it's in the first house, so it talks about your hair and your face. So if Jane Fonda wasn't so pretty in the face, we probably wouldn't be speaking so much about her. And with Mercury in the first house as well, maybe she had to be an advocate for herself a lot. Like, hey, I'm pretty, don't treat me this way. You know? Her father might also be a Capricorn, or her father might be like look like a bulldog or something. She may have had plastic surgery. She might have had like tons of plastic surgeries or something to keep her looks up. Um, Especially being a fitness guru and a celebrity and Jane Fonda. Um, that's her first house. And then so her second house, the house of finances, her cash cow, she has Aquarius. A lot of rich, wealthy friends, a lot of rich, wealthy friends, Jane Fonda, which it takes to be accomplished in TV and movies, as a lot of film projects are like passion projects and things like that. So it probably helps to have a lot of wealthy friends. She also has Mars and Jupiter and Aquarius, so this is definitely somebody who gets by with a little help of their friends. She might have been friends with a Beatle. She might have even dated a Beatle. She's from 1937. Like, you never know. She could have been the orgy that started the Beatles. Who knows? But she's aggressive when it comes to her work, and she's very lucky. And she is sort of like famous in Grace and Frankie for being like a famous friend. Um, and that's also why I wanted to do the Jennifer Aniston natal chart really bad. And there's nobody that made me not do it. It's just I'm my own boss, so I was like no. But I think she's a really good example of a. I think she has a rising Sagittarius too. Of like a famous friend because she's on a show called Friends. But Grace and Frankie probably will bring her a lot of money. If not Lily Tomlin, if not some other buddy that she has that is an Aquarius, or possibly another Sagittarius with Jupiter there. So her lucky ducky friends bring her a lot of money. She has a third house in Pisces. So like third house in Pisces with the rising Capricorn, you would never really assume that Capricorn would be so God fearing and so spiritual, but they are. Like my dad, he has a lot of jokes about the Bible from like when he was a kid and like having to read the Bible, and I think it's only like in modernity or like kids nowadays that don't have to read the Bible as much because they're reading Harry Potter and uh you know what's that book? Um, Boo Radley, Harper's Ferry. The hell is that book? To Kill a Mockingbird and and all types of crazy stuff. But since she loves God and she loves talking about God and how God has aligned her in her life. She may even be somebody in public that might tell people that she's an atheist, but she's definitely Jesus definitely speaks through her. But she also has Saturn in Pisces, so maybe that's a thing too, where it's like finding the right crowd to talk about God and spirituality for her is very difficult, so that she doesn't scare away her rich, wealthy friends. And as a Capricorn, I'm always like, oh, Capricorn, the ugly is a sign of limitations. It's a sign of boundaries. You know what I mean? Like as a Pisces, I'd probably have a chicken coop with no coop, and the chickens, they name themselves, and they're free range chickens, and no cages. I don't like cages. Ooh, scary cages. That means prison. And a Capricorn is like, no, lock them birds in a cage. Name them by number. I'm not losing one chicken or one egg, and I'm making all this money. Okay, you be a Pisces if you want to. That's what I'm like. I was like, Capricorn is like the sign of ugliness. It's like, you know, uh, but ugliness exists. It's part of the zodiac wheel. We can't just ignore it or erase it, right? So I might want to have a chicken farm, and I want free range chickens, and the chickens to be happy and kumbaya. But those fences or those gates or those cages might be protecting the chickens from, I just saw a crow rip a rabbit apart walking down the street, or a fox or a raccoon from eating them, or from them fighting or eating each other. So I'm like, I want free range chickens. Oh no, Henrietta and Batilda, they've pecked each other's eyes out and killed them. While Jane Fonda's on her rising Capricorn farm, like, oh, you called my farm ugly. You called my chicken wire ugly. At least my chickens are alive. So that's that. Especially with the Saturn there, it does give more energy. But the thing is, like, Pisces and Saturn, or like if someone was a Sun Capricorn with a rising Pisces, or if someone was a Pisces with a rising Capricorn, it is the Nine of Cups too in the tarot for whatever reason. The Nine of Cups talks to me, I think, about like harmony between like Pisces, Aquarius, and Capricorn. Like Aquarius delivering food to the door, like DoorDash or Uber Eats, and then Pisces going to pick it up from the door and bringing it to Capricorn, who's sitting down in the furnace. And them all loving each other and loving that a relationship. And the thing too is, like, I'm always like Capricorn. It's like the Jabba the Hutt sign. Like when Carrie Fisher had to choke Jabba the Hutt out. Like Capricorn is Jabba, Carrie Fisher is, or Princess Leia is Pisces, and then I guess everybody else is in Aquarius. And I'm like, I don't see nothing. Um, but I think Pisces like being in Jabba's palace. I think if Princess Peach was a Pisces, she's like, I like Bowser. He's got something to hold on to. This little Mario guy, smaller than me. I hate him. The plumber. He smells like shit. Bowser might smell like fire and brimstone, but it's from the castle that he owns. Um, I'm a Capricorn. I did not mean for this video to be an attack on Capricorn. We love Capricorns here. Capricorns. It's like capitalism. So that's our third house. And then to the third house, fourth house, we like to talk about here on this channel. That the third and the fourth house talk about the environment in which you were raised in when you were a child. And just like I was saying, like her being from New York City, is that, she could have grown up in a penthouse apartment, away from the street trash and the pollution and the noise pollution and the smog and the smoke and the aggression. But it was the 1940s or whatever, apparently, and her fourth house is Aries. She could have been, she could have been shooting dice with hobos, singing "We're in the Money," on Broadway, or fighting off bums with a knife, and had to soften herself back down for when she had to go back to Hollywood. The fourth house in Aries talks about being angry at your mother, or anger and aggression revolved around your mother's side of the family. Um, I would say a third house in Aries. I have a third, or no, is my third house in Aries? No, it's not. Absolutely not. It's not at all. I have Mercury in Aries. But like, Mercury in Aries, third house in Aries, um, Mars in Gemini. That's the like the like, hey, I'm walking here, like New Yorker voice, like get out of my way, I'm in a hurry, type of energy. So that's very much her. Um, the fourth house in Aries is very complicated, I guess, because it's like, oh, anger and aggression towards your mother's side of the family, but maybe because of your father or father's side of the family, as Aries does rule the father. Some people think Capricorn rules the father. I think Capricorn's more like the grandfather, but those are both fathers, so I'm not really like. It's your interpretations are your interpretations. You know what I mean? Like if I'm like, oh, the second house is about your pet cat, and I do 40 readings of the second house that confirm information about your pet cat or house cats or whatever, then that has become a symbol and a sign for me, as though that may not be a symbol and a sign for you in your readings, as most people who read and watch astrology are bitter, others failed astrologers. And her fifth house is in Taurus. So the fifth house, I keep saying in my interpretation of the natal chart that the fifth house is the sign or the house of, I don't know the difference between signs, planets, and houses apparently, but the fifth house, they're all the same, Pisces. You know, the fifth house is the house of sexy distractions. She has the sign of Taurus in there, and I also see the planet of Uranus, I want to say. Yes, definitely Uranus. Uranus and Taurus retrograde, cool. That's great. Um, Love to see that. So it's like money is like she finds money to be sexy. Men in really or men or women in really nice suits. But the thing about Taurus, like I was actually like right before this video, I was like, man, like a lot of Tauruses struggle with like blood circulation around their heart, around their genitals. They have like a hard time going to the bathroom, you know? And I did this one video, like a how to attract abundance video, where I was like I was like saying something, and it just like popped in my mind. It was like a urinary tract infection, and somebody on YouTube like commented like, "Oh my God, like I'm actually having issues with that." Blah 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 blah, and then they deleted it, and I was like, "Yeah, go ahead." Like, love the comment. I hate secret support, but like I don't. You don't have to share that. You don't have to share that with the world. Just be like, you are very accurate. That's all you gotta say. You don't gotta talk about your medical history or nothing. And then like Uranus and Taurus in the fifth house, urinary tract infections, sexually transmitted diseases, like talk about sexy distractions, Aquarius, multiple partners. I'm not trying to say that Jane Fonda is a loose woman. I'm just trying to say like she has a good she's if she were to pass, she's been having a good time. But it's caused a lot of distractions, and it's like also like having sex with the right people and like the right reasons why and like what's going on in people's heads. Because some people, even like through consensual sex, is like, oh, she had sex with me and I'm a garbage can. She's a bad person. You know what I mean? Whereas like if I had sex with somebody, I'm like, oh, this is like a stamp of approval, gold star, you're a great guy. We did it, we did it. Let's do it again. Whereas especially with Sagittarius, actually, as a lot of them tend to look somewhat like Mickey Rooney or like leprechauns, like they go real Sharpay in the face real quick. As stars dwindle, as the shooting stars dwindle and sizzle and fade, So there could have been like a lot of guys like trying to blackmail her, with pornography or information or page six and this and that, and before literally like before 2008, like if you were gay in Hollywood, even before 2028, like you're gay in Hollywood, like people try to bash you or make you to look out like all types of criminals. Taurus's sense of virtue could have been a huge limitation for her, as she may not have agreed with those limitations, and especially as like futurism and Aquarianism and slutterism and like I don't know what to call it, free love. Free love is a huge asset to her. So her ability to go out there and have multiple partners and not be tied down to a man or subservient in a marriage, like how a good Taurus woman would want her to be, has given her a lot of freedom and a lot of power. And I think she's also probably like disrupted a lot of power structures, just from just being a woman. from just being a Sagittarian woman, which is very lesbian coded, and rising Capricorn. So like she probably owns a lot of the rights to her movies. She's good at receiving credit for what she's done. And then her sixth house, so like all these limitations and setbacks from people trying to blackmail and extort her, trying to blackmail her, trying to whitemail her, trying to mail her in general, is with her sixth house in Gemini, which means simply to talk about it, you know? So it's like she has some Taurus guy trying to hurt her or send her death threats or whatever it is. It's like just go every day, talk about it, talk to a therapist, talk to your best friend, find your geography teacher from 8th grade and talk his ear off about it. Oh, what are you going to do? Call the police? I'm just here talking to you. Yeah, I have trauma and you're going to listen to it every word. Call your old geography teacher on the phone. Get his number out of the directory. Tell him about how your dad used to touch you and move on with your life. I can't afford a therapist, so I just decided I'm going to blackmail you through politeness and make you talk to me for hours because you're a public servant and you're my geography teacher and I just talk to you forever. Blah 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 blah. That's what she's supposed to do. Especially with Gemini there. And so Gemini in her sixth house, also Chiron is there as well. So, you know, she might be a really good talk therapist. Like, she might have people from the set of Barbarella that are like, oh, Jane, I haven't been able to get a job since 1968 on Barbarella. One of those mechanical birds fucked me up really bad. Like, what should I do? Or I have complicated feelings about my mom and dad. And she, like, probably offers them words of healing and faith, especially with that third house in Pisces. But maybe it's something that doesn't really work. Maybe talk therapy doesn't really work for her. Maybe, you know, her offering these words of calm and peace and of faith and of wisdom to her friends and her coworkers don't really bring her a lot of joy, but with that Aquarius in the second house brings her a lot of money. We love money, and so that's like the Chiron issue of her life. The Chiron issue, Vogue, the Chiron issue, how you can't heal yourself, the ways in which you can't heal yourself but you heal others. And then in her seventh house, so the seventh house, I feel like the seventh house is one of the best houses in the zodiac. If you don't know nothing about no astrology and you don't know anything about reading natal charts, but you're like interested in love, just zoom in on your seventh and your ninth house, because this says with the rising Capricorn, her best love match is a Cancer. So maybe her mom sucked. You know, maybe she had maybe she had two dads. You know what I mean? Like, regardless of genitalia or gender identity in the 1930s, maybe she had two dads. You know, maybe there was no one really like loving her and kissing her boo-boos and telling her, it's all going to be okay. I know you haven't worked since Barbarella. It's okay. Like, you're going to find work. It's going to happen for you one day, you know? And some people might call it like white lies. Some people might call it positive affirmation. Some people might call it like, oh, this guy's scary and crazy. Let me just like say something nice to him so that he goes away. But she's not a Libra, you know, so I think like anything that she does say to people, she really cares about. You know, I'm a medium and a lot of spirits talk to me, and I've been communing a lot with like John Ritter's spirit, and like that was a huge thing with him. Apparently, supposedly, so says our psychic, you know, connection. Maybe not so in the Testament of Time or in a biography or anything, but it's like he had really horrible problems with his mother. And, you know, he would talk to people about, I think he's a Gemini, and he would talk to people about it. And people, I think like Suzanne Summers, like gave him drugs or something. Like I think Suzanne Summers is the one that turned him on or turned him on the best to drugs. And she was like, I'm your mommy now, Jack. I'm your mommy now, Jack. And keep calling him Jack and not John. And it hurt him because it like really like meant something to him at that time because, you know, he really needed a mother or a mommy at points in his life. And she was just like, oh, this guy's crying about his mother and he just needed to say something that would make him shut up, you know? So Jane Fonda is in need of a mommy. And so like that's the thing too, I guess like for the past 100 years calling somebody gay or a lesbian or whatever is an insult, or oh, you're so ugly, you're so mean. Like you don't even have to be ugly, like oh, you're so mean and you're so masculine, you should be with a woman. But maybe she needs a woman, you know what I mean? And then like when you're like 80 years old, like you're not really like touching each other's bits. It's like, yeah, I'd rather be around like a nice, calm, chancy woman who's going to bring me medicine and food and healing and say nice things to me rather than some like scratchy, rashy old man who's going to be crying about some war he like fought in, you know? Which I think she also has. No, she does not. Okay. Oh no, here it is right here. Pluto. She has Pluto in Cancer. So it's like yeah, like towards she gets like towards the end of her life, like she needs a nurse, you know. Um, was Barbara ever dressed like a nurse? But she like needs a nurse. Um, I guess I can say it now because she's an older woman or whatever. Maybe she'll pass before this video comes out. She may passive cancer because that's the thing too. Like oh, cancer, the zodiac or disease. I'm like oh, they're both the same thing. Have you ever seen what cancer is? They named the cancer the disease after the sign because that's how they act. They cling on to you, they multiply like crabs, and they build up and they cause blockages and tumors. As I'm saying, Capricorn is a sign of limitations. Cancer is definitely a horrible limitation for people, especially regarding the hair and your head and what do you call it? Like I'm saying I'm hearing leukemia, but like chemo, like you know, makes you go bald. So if you're a celebrity and you get cancer, you're like, oh, I'll bounce back. I'll be cancer boy. I don't give a shit. Like, whatever, you know. Take a arm, take a limb, don't care. I'll still be famous. But then they take your hair and you're like, oh shit, like I'm known as being a blonde actress and now I'm bald, you know? So that's the seventh house in Cancer. She should date a Cancer, marry a son in Cancer. And I don't know, maybe eat a lot of fruits and vegetables to avoid growing cancer cells in her body. And then she has the eighth house in Leo. So the eighth house, you know, Seth, sex, death, and taxes. The big black bug had bitter batter. If she had better batter, it wouldn't be bitter. Okay. So sex, death, and taxes. I see the eighth house as a house of wants, wishes, and desires. So maybe, you know, looking at her unit that she has in her hair and her photo on astro charts, maybe she wants like big lustrous blonde hair. I think Barbarella was known for having like a crazy beehive, you know, a beehive. She also has the moon in Leo, so it's like also like her having a bad hair day is also like her having a bad day. Makes her very emotional. She's very emotional about her hair. Um, Very emotional about her fame and her popularity. So if I was like Jane Fonda, who's that? Never heard of her. I'd probably like crush her a little bit. Oh, there's also a Mickey Avalon song named Jane Fonda that I really liked. Which it's probably the main reason why I like her outside of her bodies of work. But then like, you know, little things like that help, you know? You know, if Mickey Avalon or the Two Live Crew made a song about you and you're like, oh, I find this song embarrassing, or this song is gross, or, you know, it's not portraying me in the best light, but it keeps you relevant, right? So, like the Halle Berry song, and Halle Berry is like best known, I think, for being beautiful, which is great, but there's tons of beautiful people, you know, there's a new child being born every day that's going to grow up and blow you out of the water. So it's like, hold on to that as long as you can. If people want to make silly little rap songs about you and how beautiful you are, take it. At least they're not calling you like fat or ugly or dumb or something, you know? 7, 8, 9. So her ninth house is in Virgo. So if things don't work out with a Cancer maid or nurse for marriage, Virgo is a best bet for either like a long distance relationship, long term relationship, long, you know, marriage, whatever. But she also has the planet of Neptune in the sign of Virgo. So Neptune, it's a trident. It is Poseidon. It is ruling the seas. But, you know, it's not the 1640s. Like, nobody's trying to just, quote unquote, discover new lands anymore. So if being famous back then was traveling to America and living in America, which in her timeline amongst her cousins and her parents might have been, oh, Jane, she's over there in America, not in the old country. Uh, it would have been like a Virgo would have brought her to America. I don't. I love you, Jane Fonda. Um, but like the Virginia Company, and she colonized. She was one of the first women in Jamestown, apparently. Brought her over here in America. But as television and movies, I see social media, internet is like the new Atlantic Ocean, the new colonization and finding new worlds. Maybe she got her first break in Virginia, or from somebody who was in Virginia, or from Virginia, or someone who was born under the sign of Virgo. Could have been her first liaison to television, acting, being on stage, and whatever. And I don't know, I don't remember what grade I was in, but the first time I was on TV, like Fox 5 used to do this thing where they would take like random local kids and get them to read the weather because the weather is a bunch of bullshit. So like I have an 8-year-old do it. He's the meteorologist today. What did you meteorologize? I don't know. I read this thing from another news channel that said it was going to rain, so it might rain. But so that guy, he was a very famous weather guy in DC. I don't remember his name. So I wouldn't be surprised if where's my Neptune? If he was a Capricorn, I think I'm Neptune and Capricorn. Might be Aquarius. I think it's Aquarius. So like who got me onto television, I guess would be my friends. Because there was like maybe like some voting or something involved, or you could even maybe say the teacher that I had in that class. I would say maybe like my middle school theater teacher, because she brought me up on stage, and then they put the theater productions on like local access or whatever. So like I would say that she would probably be one of the people that I would say or credit to getting me on television. My mother, who has an Aquarius rising, has gotten me on television a couple times through a Gemini friend who could have a lot of Aquarius in their chart. And my Neptune could be in Gemini as far as I remember my chart, so who knows? And I don't think it is. I'm pretty sure it isn't. But so whoever got Jane Fonda onto television or is responsible for her fame or her getting on the boat and going to Jamestown in a past life was a Virgo. And then in her 10th house of Libra. So Libra is her 10th house. Scorpio is where you actually see her midheaven, and I think her north node is actually in Sagittarius. But we'll say that her 10th house, her 11th house, and her 12th house are just a gigantic arrow pointing up. So it is her destiny to be married, to marry well, to have good relationships, to have a lot of friends, have a lot of wealthy friends to bring her money. She's a very lucky, fortunate person. I don't know, like, I guess maybe there's a part of celebrity where you're thinking, like, she was in a G.I. Joe movie. It did really well. She won a bunch of Oscars. But now she's broke and sleeping in a closet doing, drugs, and her life is bad and awful, opposed to maybe the marketing or the ideal that, Libra in the 10th house, oh, she's sitting around somewhere eating caviar with Robin Leach, having made out very well, which most actresses might be that initial case, but with that rising Capricorn, she's like, I don't know, I'm going to get some money. Like, I don't know about you, but what I know about me is that I'm going to get paid, and I'm going to get married, and I'm going to get laid. Specifically laid, too. Or what is it? I'm going to score. Sagittarius, So, she might have some, like, ancient porno films that have been, like, just, like, scaring the hell out of her whole life, giving her heart attacks for somebody to discover them. And then later on in life, she's like, this is hot. I'm releasing this. I'm going to make a Jane Fonda porno streaming service called, Jane Seymour Butts Fonda. And I'm going to charge $100 for people to watch them or something. I don't know. A Blockbuster with all my porno tapes. I I mean, who knows? She could have hooked up with some of the best people in Hollywood. Some of the sexiest people. Josh Brolin, maybe. I don't know who that. I think I did his video or was going to, and I don't know who he is. James Brolin. Um, and then her 11th house of Scorpio. So 11th house of Scorpio talks about friends. How many of us have them? Friends. She might have hooked up with a lot of like MCs and a lot of black guys and a lot of rappers. Who knows? Like Biz Markie and Jane Fonda could have a sex tape somewhere. But so as her second house, and Aquarius talks about her lucky, wealthy friends bringing her a lot of money, she also has a lot of strong, powerful friends that help her out. I'm sure Jane Fonda has done some type of Bono, U2 charity things in Africa. Maybe she's given a lot of charity to Africa. Maybe there's a bunch of like witch doctors in Africa that just love Jane Fonda and they're like sending her blessings and helping her elevate her career. And I'm super not apologetic about being wheezy or coughing these videos because I was watching the news yesterday, which I never do, and that bitch was coughing the entire time. I was like, man, if you're afraid of doing videos or being on camera because you have a mealy mouth or you shoot snot rockets like Bob the drag queen, this video is not about Bob the drag queen. This video is not about Monet Exchange. This video is not about sibling rivalry. I love sibling rivalry. I love Alaska and Willem's show, Race Chaser or Drag Chaser. But those snot rockets that Bob were doing were fucking unforgivable, and it made me tune out. And I apologize. He's great. He's poignant, but like they need an editor to edit. Like they need to like censor that. That shit was wild. But that's the thing. It's like that's what it's like talking to him, and that's what I'm sort of selling here. That's what he's selling on his podcast, and it's like, yeah, I shoot snot rockets. I live in a moldy old apartment in New York. That's what happens. He might need like a humidifier or like a space heater or something. Maybe Jane Fonda has a very mealy mouth or something. I don't know. I know I do. But I'm like, if you can stand my mealy mouth and my sometimes Boston accent and my sometimes ghetto accent and coughing and sneezing and blah, 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 then we were meant for each other and we should talk to each other and I should read your natal chart. But basically, yeah, Scorpio in the 11th house, she has a lot of black friends. She has a lot of Aquarius friends. She might even wax on poetically about like a Smokey Joe, old black friend she had in New York, Bleeding Gum Murphy, old jazz man that she used to have sex with or something. That is why she is not racist, because she had sex with Bleeding Gums Murphy. She might actually have like a lot of mystical Negro friends that she's like, I'm not trying to be racist Fitz the cat, but black people are magic and I don't know how to really talk about it properly. So this is very interesting with the Sagittarius rising Capricorn because she has her Sun and her Venus and her North Node all beautifully positioned in her 12th house. Which I would say Capricorn is a sign of, limitations and misery and bad things and prison and jail and rules and breaking the rules and punishments. But the 12th house is a sign of misery in a completely different way. It's like, being in the rapture and watching your cousin float off into heaven, and while you're standing there with lead weights on your shoes, you're like, oh, I'm very jealous of this. You know what I mean? In a spiritual way. But I'd say, like, the coalescing of Sagittarian and Piscean energies is actually a very beautiful thing because, Pisces is said to be Zeus transforming himself into the celestial fish to save love and love's children through the Titanomachy. So there is this like I don't see a lot of Aquarian. I mean, she has Aquarius, the second house, Jupiter. Philanthropic, let me feed all the children, let me give water to all the children, which is probably something that she does. It's on a grander scale. It's like, not even let me feed the children, let me pick up all the kids, take them to a place where there's food already. You know what I mean? You're living in a desert. There's no food. let me like get a fleet of helicopters and take you to a prairie where, figs can just fall off of trees, in an orchard where figs are just falling off of trees and falling into your mouth, so you don't have to starve anymore. We don't have to bring food to you. We just bring you to the food. Which I think there's like a stand-up comedian in the 80s that kind of says that. He's like, hey, instead of keep bringing food to these children in these countries where there's no food, why don't you just take the kids and bring them to the country with all the food at? And that way, save a lot of gas on airplanes, you know? So maybe there's something going on with that type of energy. There could be some guy or a group of guys that just like hate women or just hate Jane Fonda, and they see her continuation of her success with Grace and Frankie and her Emmy Awards and her being on Ellen and them playing Barbarella on Netflix, and someone being like, oh, that bitch hasn't been in a good movie since the 60s, since Barbarella, and who's watching that? Who's watching old movies? And then they're like scrolling through Netflix, and then there's that bitch, you know what I mean? Sexy as hell, hair three feet up in the air, I never thought I was gonna have to look at her and be miserable again, and then here she is. She also has Venus in her 12th house, which Venus in the 12th house, God, I hope she marries a Cancer. I hope she marries a Virgo. I hope she marries a Libra. But it's like relationships sort of make her miserable. She's somewhat probably would like at her core. She's probably somewhat of a loner, and it probably is, especially being an actress and a health guru. It's like, sometimes at the end of the day, after being better than everybody else as a Sagittarius, I would just like to go home, pop off my wig, looking like dying of jaundice, looking like a Lego, and smoke packs of cigarettes and eat ramen noodles and ice cream, without anybody being like, as a celebrity, oh, Jane Fonda, she eats ramen noodles. You know what I mean? Like getting email deals, like, hey, do you wanna do a deal with ramen noodles? And it's like, no, I don't want my brand to be associated with ramen noodles, even though they're delicious. Jesus. So or cigarettes, or she might have even been in a cigarette commercial before, or watched them and been, whatever, and blah 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 in the past. But it's also her destiny to be great, to be an Olympian, to be an award winner, to have her accolades be punctuated by the awards that she has won with her North Node in Sagittarius. She's probably really good at attracting other Sagittariuses. And like I said, at her core, she's a loner. She feels the best alone. Okay. So that's been Jane Seymour Fonda. I couldn't make up. I was like, I'm gonna make up a silly Billy middle name for her, like I think I did to Justin Timberlake or Justin Bieber or somebody. And I was like, oh, look, she already has a silly middle name. Don't have to make one up. Jane Seymour Butts Fonda. Cool. Um, but we love Jane Fonda. Thank you so much for liking, listening, subscribing, and finding your best friend who is a Sagicorn with a sun in Sagittarius and a rising Capricorn to be like, look, you're ugly just like Jane Fonda. Um, that's what Tarot Bay says. Ew. But no, we love her. She's pretty. She's gorgeous. She's beautiful in this life and probably will be beautiful in the next. And then sometimes Capricorn in the first house does kind of talk about like your appearance and your self-esteem, like you being ugly. But it's more, the ugliness doesn't always have to be skin deep. It could be like an inner ugliness. Um, with the rising position of Capricorn, it's more like had to have lived a very ugly life. You know what I mean? Like you're this beautiful blonde woman, and it's like you're just constantly getting attacked by King Kong or shit on the streets or Great Depression or war or a lack of chivalry or whatever you call it, misogyny. And it's like, there could have been times in this world, or for some people with different charts, and like I know misogyny exists, I know sexism exists, I know racism exists, but never really having to deal with the negative circumstances of it. Like, you might watch, your favorite actress who just happens to be black, and you're, going against each other for a role, and they choose you in the role. It's like, meter maid number 7, or like not even, it's not Spider-Man, which I have a lot of feelings about Spider-Man. But, and it's like, oh no, look, Jane, we chose you because we're white and we're the Aryan Brotherhood, and you know, this is the Hays Code, and we only want white women to be in these films. Barbarella might have been written as a black woman. Barbarella might make a lot more sense if she was black or something. You know, it might have supposed to have been like Angela Bassett or someone, or Eartha Kitt or someone, you know, of that age and of that time. But they're like, oh, a white woman wants to do it. We'll do this. We'll make more money. So you know, there's a lot of like, you know, white power structures, to Hollywood, and you know, Hays codes and cabals and things like that. You know, she could have been her early life like, oh, good, like I'm trumping all these. They're not hiring these Asian girls or these black girls, and I was scared of her because she's beautiful. You know what I mean? But because of racism, I get to be the star in all these films. Great, awesome, amazing. You know, like, that's great. Where you know it's not an issue for her. Whereas like for those other people who are turned down from those roles, it's a big horrible issue. As she gets older in life, she might feel like regret or remorse about it. And it's like, oh, what an ugly world that I had to succeed in. What an ugly race I had to run. So it's like her as a Sagittarius. If she were a horse, it's like, okay, you made it. This is the Kentucky Derby. You're the prettiest horse out there. You're the tallest horse. You're the fastest horse with the most awards, the most achievements. But this last race you have to run, it's going to be muddy, you know, and ugly, and one of the horses are going to die in the middle of the race, and you're just going to have to get those blinders on and just keep on running, okay? So that's been my analysis of the Sagittarius rising Capricorn. Like I said, be shady, send this to one of your friends with rising Capricorn because it has not been very kind. But I feel like as an astrologer, as a tarot reader, if I'm all kind and light, love and light and rainbows, you won't be able to get the full picture. As photos and movies are built from contrast and dark shadows and bright lights, okay? Who would you know who to focus on center stage with the spotlight at them if everybody else wasn't covered in darkness? You would never be able to see them, right? Okay. So thank you. I will see you in my next video, and bye.